Hey, the cough button didn't work. Oh, wait a minute. I hit the wrong. Oh, I hit the wrong button. Anyway, hi, happy Valentine's, everybody. It's Mary Wieden You, and we're going to talk Valentine's later on. To me, it's kind of like I'm going HGTV a little bit toward the end of the show. But before that, we're going to do War and Peace. And we have sitting here opposite me is our one and only Dr. Glenn Antizzo, professor of history and politics at MC. And isn't this a glorious time for you? I mean, you must be going nuts.
I could sum it up, Mary, in 2 words: job security.
Oh, yeah, really.
So, it's been absolutely amazing. I think, every time somebody asks me, what do you think of this? It's like, really? I mean, I can't keep up with the pace.
Well, you're talking about Trump 2.0.
Right.
I mean,
but
also
like
4.0.
even with this, you were the one who called me and informed me about the topic we're about to talk about. I didn't know it was even a thing yet.
War and maybe peace is what I was calling it in my promo about the show. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be talking, and so between Ukraine and Russia. And interestingly enough, we started talking about this, and you started being a guest on this show. It had to be 3 years ago because somehow you told me, I guess, I don't know how I knew you, but you said that you had students who were asking about Ukraine, and this was before the war. And I thought, by golly, if there are college kids in central Mississippi talking about Ukraine, which most people have never heard about, that's worthy of talking about on the show because it matters to them. It matters. Maybe they have relatives, I don't know, but that's what started us off. And those kids have gone on, I suppose, graduated and all that kind of stuff. But they're the ones who started it. But you tell the audience, because you know all about that part of the world, having worked on your PhD there, right?
Yeah, not there, but about there. Yeah, my PhD is from Louisiana State University, and when I was going to school there, I was interested in Eastern Europe. So my 2 primary areas are international relations, how nations interact with each other, and comparative politics, the domestic governments of other countries. And my minor, you could take a third field or a minor. So my minor was Eastern European history. Oh. And I took 4 classes in 2 in Russian history, 1 in Eastern European history, and I think 1 in Balkans history. And I was supposed to write my dissertation on Soviet foreign policy. But I started my PhD in 1990, and the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. So what happened was my major professor said, look, Glenn, I know what you want to do, but anything that you write at this moment, because the events are unfolding so quickly, will be like shooting at a moving target. So we came up with another topic, but I've never lost that interest in that part of the world. So, this has been really exciting.
But it's centuries old. All that part of the world is so centuries old. To learn it in a short period of time is amazing, and learn as much as you can. Back how many BC, right? I mean, this is BC times. Really?
It goes back to very, very early. Like Genghis Khan early. I had a really good professor of Russian history named Tom Owen. He was a Harvard-trained PhD who was teaching at Louisiana State University. He was absolutely great. And I had another professor who was a professor of history named Carl Reuter at LSU also. I can't say enough great things about these guys. They really, helped me understand a very difficult part of the world.
It is. And you've been explaining it to us all this time. One time, I think it was to Perez, I said, excuse me, I said we ought to go audit one of his classes, and Perez said, "Why? He gives us a lesson right here. We're taking classes, and really we do appreciate all that because it is very difficult to understand. We think our country's old, 250 years? I mean, that's like nothing,
right?
Compared to where all of our ancestors came from, really. And it's a study that will go on forever, won't it? I mean, because you just always can learn. Always,
absolutely, and there's always something new to find out.
Yes, and new stuff. Well, I contacted you the other day. I saw a banner on the bottom of one of the news, probably Fox, that said, peace talks to begin in Ukraine or about Ukraine and Russia. And I know who to call about that. So, I mean, it happened fast.
Yes.
Well, these things are doing these days. And then also, so you teach history and you teach politics. So Trump 2.0 or 4.0, that's amazing too. It's like, what? Every day is like that. Did you happen to see, it was so strange the other day, here is the President of the United States sitting at his desk, and here's the richest man in the world with his little boy on his shoulders talking about whatever, important matters of the country, and this little boy is there. And then there was some things the next day when he got down on the ground. He wandered over to the desk, I guess the Resolute desk the president was sitting at, and little boy was just going to hang around. He said something like, "I don't like you." I don't know. I was like, "Oh, come on! How can anybody hear that? I didn't like you, and you shouldn't be president," or something like that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I
don't know.
I didn't hear that. I heard that he said, "Go away."
Oh, that was.
And I guess the kid's got designs on the desk himself. Who knows?
Maybe so. And he's 4 years old or something like that. But I mean, that's weird.
Yeah,
that's our time.
But you know how kids are at that age. You know, they say what's on their mind exactly. There's no filter.
Yes, one time when I was about that age, my parents introduced me to a man who was bald. I'd never seen a bald-headed person. He stooped down to shake my hands and goes, "Well, hello, little Mary, how are you?" And I looked up and I said, "Daddy, what happened to that man's hair?" And that man was a business partner or contact of my father's and my grandfather's. Like, I don't think they ever heard from that guy again. But I mean, you know, Oh, and another time, my people were very correct in speaking English, and my mother was talking to a woman who would say, "He don't this and he don't that," and I was standing next to my mother, and I finally piped up with, "My mother says to say he doesn't," and the lady looked down, and she goes, "Oh, is that what your mother says?" Oh, I hid behind my mother's dress. But anyway, I mean, so I don't remember doing these things,
right.
But you know how to tell you. But anyhow, yeah, that was an odd thing. But so I wonder about if we're going to have peace talks, and I think they're going to be. Mm-hmm. Who won? Who won this war?
Mary, that really depends on what the nature of the talks are. I've been hearing, reports that pretty much. Rubio is going to send the message that they're going to have the Ukrainians are going to have to concede the territory that is captured already, which would include. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Which
would include Crimea, which was taken over during the Obama administration, and then the eastern regions of the country. It amounts to about 20% of the total area of Ukraine, and from what I understand, they're not going to be getting much in return. You know, I know that Trump has made it a point of saying publicly that he wants access to the rare earth minerals that Ukraine has evidently a treasure trove of in return for supplying weapons, and that's fair. But I think that Trump may be making a couple of mistakes here. One of those mistakes is, you just got elected president of the United States. You do not want to come across as either caving into or rolling over for a dictator. Trump should assert, this is the way it's going to be, and come up with some sort of an equitable deal. And Pete Hegseth really made a mistake.
Yeah, why?
You never take something off the table before you get there. And the thing that he took off the table was NATO membership. The perfect ending to this would have been to say, okay, Russia, you hang on to that eastern 20%. We will not recognize it in international law, but we will recognize your de facto control over the place. However, the other 80% goes under NATO's protective shield.
We've talked about that.
And I think that would have been something that you could have gotten, Zelensky to sign on to.
But I've heard Trump say he doesn't think that Ukraine should go to NATO.
No, I know, and that has been a long-standing. Yeah. The idea is that they don't want to antagonize the Russians, but I don't understand why you are so worried about a country that is getting so depleted that they actually have to call in North Korean troops.
Afghans. I think they call
start recruiting Afghans, Houthis, and Syrian fighters, and getting your drones from Iran. Look, they're in trouble. They are not in as good a position as they seem to think they are. And I think that Ukraine should definitely negotiate hard on this. But there is this increasing feeling, I think, in Kiev and even in some quarters here in the United States, that the deal may already be done. That the president, when he talked to Putin the other day, may have already come up with something. And again, I think that you do not cave over for these guys, because what's going to end up happening is, once an animal, and I'm using
right.
I'm not saying that Putin's an animal,
well, sort of.
But I'm using I'm using an analogy. Once an animal gets a taste for blood,
Oh, then
it wants more.
exactly.
And so, once he knows that he has got his control over that eastern 20%, he will use that as the launching off point to get the rest.
Why not keep an eye?
And how much, the idea of Ukrainian neutrality is insane from this perspective. The Ukrainians, when the Soviet Union broke up in 1991, its nuclear weapons stockpile was located in 4 different countries: Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Ukraine. And the Ukrainians had nuclear weapons. And in 1994, they signed an agreement called the Budapest Memorandum, where in return for giving up the weapons, the British, the Americans, and the Russians agreed that they would respect Ukraine's territorial integrity and neutrality. Every party that signed that has violated the agreement because the Russians invaded, and the United States and the British really haven't done much but supply arms. And to the shame of the previous president, he actually all but invited the Russians in by saying, well, if it's a small incursion.
Yeah, right. Yes. That was step one. That was it.
That was.
Yeah.
And then I think that the Russians, when they watched the really sloppy withdrawal from Afghanistan, knew that there would really be nothing that the United States could or would do about this, at least not militarily. And so they were willing to take advantage of it, and so far it's worked out. And the idea of rewarding that working out. But if I were the Ukrainians, this part of the deal that has been discussed in the media recently about, Ukraine would give up the territory and pledge to be permanently neutral, it's a bad deal. It's a very bad deal.
Yes, it is. Terrible. They just got totally screwed. And so what? How helpful was it for Biden to say, well, we'll give you all these arms, but you can't use such and such. You can't use certain things, or you can't go too far into Russia with those things.
We did something that honors a long-standing tradition in the United States: fighting with one arm tied behind your back.
Okay.
A large part of the reason why I think the war has gone on as long as it has is there's been like this drip, 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 where we just give a little bit. I mean, it's a huge amount of money that we've been spending, but like you said, we're sort of incrementally giving out the weapons, and then we're telling them, but don't do it this way.
Oh, I know.
But don't. Look, you have bases on the other side of the border in Russia that are being used to supply the war effort. Why would you not hit those bases?
Well, that's just typical of what went on for the last 4 years. Just typical. Anything to embarrass the United States, which, we've been royally embarrassed, I would have to say, and it's clawing back.
Right.
But, you're not so big, you're not so blah, 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 brave, and et cetera. It was awful. And I don't think Biden was in charge of much. Maybe, the bubblegum machine or ice cream machine or something like that. And that was about it. And whoever was the de facto president, or whoever was the cabal, ran that thing. And they obviously didn't want us to win anything.
Well, let me say that
in my opinion,
there are two concerns that people bring up, though. One of them is that the Ukrainians do have a corrupt government. I'm not going to lie about that. I mean, there was some money that was sent over to buy shells, and my understanding is that the company just took the money and never delivered the shells. So there is a problem with that. And I do understand Americans who say, look, it's a corrupt regime. Why would we want to continue to support this? And the answer is because the alternative is worse. I'm not quite sure why we're sending them money to buy stuff. I would just send them the stuff. Mm-hmm. But I would work with the Ukrainians to clean up the government, but I would not stop the help that you're giving them, because I don't want to punish the people that live there for the ineptitude or greed of some of the people in government. I don't think Zelensky himself is in on any of this, but I do concede that there is some corruption in the government, which is part of the reason that they've never been admitted into the EU.
Oh, not in the EU either?
No, no. They won into the EU,
and they won into NATO.
They won into NATO. The other thing is that I have a feeling that this may be a little bit of payback. You may remember that the big guy called the Ukrainians and said, "You're investigating my son. I want the guy doing this fired, or else."
Yes.
I think that the current administration, the president in particular, sees a connection between Ukraine and Biden and is not happy about it. This is just an intuitive feel.
Right.
I have nothing but just some circumstantial evidence that connect those two things together. So I want to warn the public that I'm not saying that that's definitely a thing. Just my gut feeling on this.
Well, I don't think any of us we've never seen about the phone call that Trump made. The one that, I don't know, was that one of his impeachments? Anyway, the allegedly famous phone call to Zelensky, right when he took his presidency the first time. I always thought that what he wanted to do was, rightfully so, wanted to find out what was what was the connection with the Biden family and the Biden kid, back then, and that he needed to know that. Mm-hmm. He needed to know exactly what was going on, what deals were being made, and so on and so on. But that was never brought out in all this stuff, all these years, all that phony stuff that they pulled on me. I think that's what that was about, because I think Trump had a right to know what's going on here behind the back of the American people. So I wonder who is going to be tasked with rebuilding Ukraine, because it's a mess. It's just, there's all the beautiful antiquities. I think some of those beautiful buildings in Kiev are still there,
right? But
the rest of it is just gone.
Yeah.
It's sort of like Gaza.
There are cities like Mariupol that have been absolutely reduced to rubble.
Is that going to go back to the Russians, or is that going to be Ukraine?
That's going to stay. And let me make a point. The Russians may have a little bit of a point about Crimea, in that Crimea was always considered Russian. As a matter of fact, the major. It sounds like we're coming up to a break, I'll hold it there until we get back to the other
we're
side.
talking about Crimea on the other side. It's Mary Wieden You here on SuperTalk Jackson, and we've got Dr. Glenn Antizzo here in the studio with us. Don't go away. Well, we're back having our history lesson, which I always appreciate, with Dr. Glenn Antizzo from MC, History and Politics, and he is in the middle of a big, big time with all of that. And when we went to break, by the way, I should give people the number, 808-888. Let me start again. 888-8637. And you can text us at 601-879-4395. Of course, you can always watch us because we live stream at supertalk.fm/Mary. And when we went to break, we were talking about the Russians and the Ukrainians, and peace talks will begin, we think, pretty soon. I don't know when. I'll be talking about Ukraine, about the peninsula.
Right. The Crimean Peninsula has a history of being Russian. During the Russian Empire, Peter the Great was a sailor, which I learned while I was in the history class at LSU, and he thought that Russia should have a warm water, or at least warmer water port, where they could base a fleet, because St. Petersburg, the capital city at the time, is on basically the Baltic, and it freezes over. So he built a big naval base there called Sebastopol.
About what year?
Good question.
1800s, 1700s?
1600s.
Oh, way back. Okay.
And they
should have 1600s. Wow.
Yeah, and so it has become for Russia sort of like what maybe San Diego is for the United States. It's where their southern fleet is headquartered, and it has a large Russian minority there. As a matter of fact, to be honest with you,
kind of half and half.
I think it may actually be a Russian majority slightly, and so that was always considered part of Russia when. During the Cold War, my understanding is that in the 1950s, even though it was considered Russian, Khrushchev, and I'm not sure what the reason was, but Khrushchev transferred control of Ukraine from the Russian Republic to the Ukrainian Republic. Now, just to sort of bring our listeners up to speed, Russia was, at least in theory, a federal state. Just as the United States has 50 states, Russia had 17 republics. That's why it was called the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Russia was the largest, but Ukraine was a republic. Think of these republics as the equivalent sort of, this is not an exact analogy, but as the equivalent of like American states. So it would be like transferring land from Mississippi to Louisiana or something like that. Except in this case that there were a lot of Russians there. And so the Russian position, at least in part, is that they are entitled to at least Crimea because it was theirs to start with, and Khrushchev never should have given it to Ukraine. But it's been Ukrainian for like 60, 70, 80 years. And geographically, it does make sense if you look at the coast. Yeah. The Russians have been able to peel off about half of Ukraine's coastal area. The only major city that the Ukrainians have on the water that's still theirs is Odessa. Everything else, Mariupol, the entire Crimean Peninsula has been taken over by the Russians, and the Russians want to hang on to that. And again, they're gonna. I hate using a World War II analogy, but they're gonna basically make the same claim that Hitler made about Sudetenland. That it's ours, and we have to protect the Russians living there from the horrible Ukrainians that are, and. It's a flimsy argument to hang on to the eastern part of the country, but unfortunately, Ukrainian military operations have not been successful in liberating those areas. They've been able to liberate a good share of it, but not get the Russians completely out.
Well, Ukraine will have Odessa, the waterway. They'll have access to water. The reason I think that's important is if we're going to have anything to do with those people, we've got to have access.
Yes,
and I don't know what we would be doing there. I hope we're not going to go in rebuilding them because it's, I don't think it's for us to rebuild. I mean, we can help them in a small way, but, I feel sorry for the Ukrainians. I really do. And I met I don't know if I told you this, maybe if you've been here since then, a woman who, Russian accent, at a local store. I recognize you from Russia. She said, well, Ukraine. I said, oh, my goodness, what do you think about the war? She said, well, I have relatives who are both Russian and Ukrainian, and, it's a very difficult time for everybody. Like, yeah, she didn't want to talk about it because that's how they are, though. They're all tied in together, aren't they? And so that makes it all difficult. But there is access. Ukrainians will have access to water, at least.
Yeah, at least for now. And that's part of the reason why the deal has got to be good. And I would not take the Russians at their word. And obviously, the Americans and the British have been unreliable in guaranteeing the territorial integrity and neutrality of Ukraine. So again. The deal, as I understand it, is again that the Russians hang on to that area, the Crimean Peninsula, the eastern part, and for whatever reason, the name of that region, the Donetsk region,
Donetsk. Oh, okay.
Hang on to that. The Ukrainians actually did launch an offensive that went into Russia proper, north of the Donetsk region. They would withdraw from that. So the Ukrainians would withdraw from the Russian territory they captured. The Russians would hang on to the Ukrainian territory they captured, and Ukraine would have to pledge to be permanently neutral.
They're not getting anything.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's
that's why I'm saying this is a bad deal.
Well, very bad.
And when you reward that kind of predatory behavior, you get more of it later.
Exactly. Yeah. They say, "Oh well, hey, no problem. We'll just go back and get more." That's what the Russians would think.
Again, I hate using World War II analogies because I've heard that if you use a World War II analogy, you've already lost the debate. But it's so clear in this one. You may remember in 1938, Hitler gets Germany and Austria together in the Anschluss, so they take over. Then shortly afterwards, they point to Sudetenland, as I said a moment ago,
which is what nowadays?
That's the western part of the Czech Republic.
Oh, okay.
And they say that there's a German minority there and they're being brutalized by the Czechs, and what we need to do is put them under our protection. And so at Munich in 1938, the British, the French, Mussolini, and Hitler all get together and they ask Hitler, if we give this to you, are we done? And he says yes. And so they handed over to him. The Czechs weren't even invited to the meeting, but they handed over the territory. It's the most defensible part of the Czech Republic, so they put the Czechs at a very big disadvantage. And then Hitler rolls in a few months later to take over the rest of Czechoslovakia. And then, of course, he starts thinking about Poland next. And I see that pattern being repeated in Russia. I think Russia would like to cobble together the old Russian Empire plus a few adjuncts. If Ukraine is overrun Moldova is next. They've already been working on Moldova.
Moldova, supposedly, the people there decided that they don't want to be independent. They didn't want to be Republican, not Republican, but
An independent republic.
Democratic way.
Yeah.
They didn't want that. They wanted to go back because they didn't know how to act. It's like well, when we had this exchange student from Germany, she said there were a lot of Eastern Germans who came over and just plopped down because they didn't know how to take care of themselves. They were so overrun by the Russians, and this is many years later, and they didn't know how to act. They didn't know what to do. The German was taken out of them by the Russians. Well, maybe the Moldovans were that way too.
Well, keep this in mind also. I mean, that puts the Russians, taking over Ukraine and getting a sympathetic government in Moldova basically puts them on NATO's doorstep. And, you've already had Russian drones and occasionally Russian planes and on one or two occasions Russian missiles getting into the airspace of Poland, getting into the airspace of Romania. These countries are terrified. The Poles in particular are absolutely paranoid because, for good reason, there have been 4 times in history where Poland has been wiped off the map. Now, there have been other countries involved, but what all 4 instances have in common is the Russians. The Russians have been behind all 4 episodes. Most recently, when the Russians made the deal with Hitler at the beginning of World War II, that the Nazis would take the western 2/3 of Poland, the Russians would join them 3 weeks later and take the eastern 1/3 of Poland and the 3 Baltic states, Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. And those countries don't want to go back. They do not want to go back. The Baltic states were part of the Soviet Union. They do not want to go back. And the Poles are absolutely worried. And I think for good reason.
Yeah, really. What about places like Kazakhstan, the Stans, which were breakaways, sort of, before the wall came down? Like the exchange kid. I said, Did you ever see television when you were growing up? She said, oh, yeah, we had TV and toys, and but how long will that last?
Well, they still have they have ruthlessly authoritarian governments that keep tight control over the society, and I think that they are, to a certain extent, aligned with Putin's view, as long as Putin doesn't try to take over their territory.
And how about Romania? There's something about them lately. We had a guy years ago visit the state. He was going around looking for help to keep, what could Romania do governmentally to keep the Russians from getting them, because they were so afraid they were going to get caught by the Russians again.
Right.
Oh, they were worried about the Germans, too, at that time. They were worried about Germans getting them. And they're like, ooh, what are we going to do? Is Romania okay? I mean, are they free and independent still? Is somebody looking at them?
Yeah, no, I think there's something called Freedom House, which is a good website to go look at, and it rates countries by, whether it categorizes them as free, partially free, or not free. And if the last time I looked, and I'll admit it was a while ago, they were still rated as free. But even
what is it called again?
Freedom House.
Freedom House. Okay.
Yeah.
.com.
Right. Okay. And I believe that they're still rated as free.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that they've got troubles like everybody else does, and just sort of garden variety stuff. I don't know if there's any existential crisis facing them, except for the Russians at the door.
Yeah, really.
And again, there have been Russian drones that have flown into Romanian airspace, and the Romanians and the Poles have scrambled their jets in order to sort of shepherd these things back out.
And we never gave F-16s, did we, to Ukraine? Did we? I don't think we did. No. No, they were like, no, the Biden people, no, we're going to give you, of course, the Obama people gave them blankets, but Biden gave them some guns, right. I think. But we never gave them the F-16s that they needed and wanted.
I think that they had gotten some modern planes. I don't remember whether they're F-16s or not.
But anyway,
and it may not be from us. It may, the Poles, I think, were anxious to give them some jets.
Yeah. So many people, is Poland right next door, right?
Yes.
And so many of the Ukrainians went, we saw them getting on buses. They were evacuating to Poland.
Right.
And then there were stories about getting jobs and sending kids to school and so to try and maintain some normalcy, and help themselves out as much as they could, because it was the women who took the kids, whereas the men stayed behind.
Right.
But that's tenuous. I really feel sorry for the Ukrainians. I really do. I'm sorry for them, because they're not going to come out on top of this at all, apparently, unless somebody has another better idea.
Well, again, appeasement has a very bad track record of success.
Yes.
And I really hope, again, I think that the president is doing himself a disservice and doing the world a disservice if there is a cave on this. You cannot be so anxious to get a peace settlement here that you get a bad peace.
So are they? Oh, they're going to have talks in Saudi Arabia, I think. Isn't that right?
I had not heard that.
Saudi's somehow connected with this. Wow. Well, we'll be watching this one, won't we?
Absolutely.
We'll be back, and because we're going to have to go away. We're not doing the whole segment because we're going to just lay off of worldly things and political things. We're going to do a little Valentine DIY stuff, everybody. No, I'm not going HGTV, but that's what we're going to do because it's Valentine's Day, so we're going to do a little bit of that. And Glenn Antizzo, thank you as always. Appreciate hearing you. You're so smart, so on top of things, and I'm really going to learn so much about. So now we know how to watch these negotiations, watch and see who gets all these things from the Ukrainians and who doesn't. All right, that's the way to look at it.
May I just wish my wife a very happy Valentine's Day.
Hey, very happy Valentine's Day, Mrs. Antizzo. See y'all. Because we're going to do some Valentine things, and it's going to be DIY things. Never have done any kind of DIY things. And I've got Stacy, what is your last name? Stacy Taylor.
Shelby Taylor.
Shelby Taylor with two men in a truck, which, by the way, I thought was strictly a locally created business, and it's not. It's big all around the country. But I had a contact from, maybe it was you, who said, you want to do something like that in the show? And I'm like, that's not really what I do, but yes, let's do it. It's Valentine's Day. So it's not too late for you to get on the stick and do some things for your Valentine. Oh.
Yes, and this is all with leftover moving boxes. So if you have moved with us and you have leftover moving boxes or any cardboard boxes, this is just something to keep the kids busy.
And so, so you attach anything, I guess, on here, right? You've got little things.
Ribbons, some yarn.
Like that.
You just cut out the box of a heart, and then these are little pom-poms made of yarn. You can get all from Dollar General, Dollar Tree, and you can hang it on a door or on a mirror. And
that's cute.
That's one thing.
Cute.
Get some paint. Here's some paint. So one of our coworkers has 4 kids, and this is 4 hearts made out of a leftover cardboard box.
Let's see. Hold it up to the camera. See that? Okay.
And what you could do is get some ribbon, and then just glue it on the back and kind of connect them all. And then like a garland,
cute.
A vertical garland of their names. Here's a little example of the pom-pom.
And you get these things you find like at Dollar General, little pom-pom things, or things that sort of resemble that anyway.
Yes,
whatever.
Really anything.
And glue it. Some kind of, what kind of glue?
Hot glue, a glue stick.
Not too hard to do.
With the kids, yeah, that would probably be more safe.
Okay.
But yeah, I just did this with scissors.
Not Gorilla Glue, right?
No. Not Gorilla Glue.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that would be,
wouldn't that be
forever.
Good? Oh, I like Gorilla Glue, but it wouldn't.
It works very well. I don't know about the kids.
I just glued a granite countertop back together with the epoxy version of Gorilla Glue. It ain't going nowhere.
Yeah,
I need
the kid's
that.
Hand.
I do a lot of things with Gorilla Glue and Gorilla Tape, by the way. It makes duct tape look sick. Gorilla Tape is tough. You ever use that, Lance?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Gorilla Tape, but anyway. Okay, so you get these things at a store or something like that anyway, and cut these things out. Okay?
Yeah, and just, either the parents could use the Gorilla Glue, the kids could use the glue sticks.
Yeah.
And just glue it down. And with these, you don't even need a box cutter. I just use scissors. And so, cuts
find
really
a box,
easily.
get some scissors, and you have magic marker. That's not
magic
hard.
marker, paint, put them outside, and keeps them busy.
Like moms.
Yes.
So are you using these? You're going to go to a little what grade?
4th grade. My son's
grade.
10 at Madison Avenue. 4th grade Valentine's party, and we are doing a ice cream sundae bar.
Uh-oh. That's going to be fun.
That sounds fun.
I need to be. I wasn't invited, but I would definitely.
Well, you got some hot fudge involved in that.
Some sprinkles and
sprinkles,
hot fudge.
bananas, strawberries. They got all the works.
I'll tell you what's a good sinful thing to have for ice cream. You only need 1 scoop because who cares about the ice cream? It's the stuff that goes on it that matters.
Yeah.
1 scoop of chocolate mint, and then put some hot fudge on it. And then put some marshmallow fudge on top of that. Marshmallow, that's not a fudge, it's a marshmallow topping. Not just marshmallow, but the specific topping. And I don't know what more else you need because you got such a sugar high. You're flying off the walls for days.
Anything else,
but it's so good. They all work together
Ooh.
so well.
I'm going to have to try that out.
So what else? Cookies and stuff like that, too? Are the kids going to be making things?
They are going to be making some crafts. I might bring some boxes.
Yeah, really.
From our office and just get them all busy. Get them to take home some 2 men in a truck boxes.
Good PR.
It's marketing.
Yeah.
I was telling her I thought that was a company started by local people. That was just a local business. And I thought, well, how nice is that?
Yeah,
but
it started in Lansing, Michigan.
I was going to say, I thought it was up north in Michigan or something like that. Right?
1985. It was founded, and then there's a local Ridgeland franchise, and we started that in '99.
That's on 51?
It is on Highway 51, across from Klein Tours.
Oh, where is that? I still don't know. I mean, I go up 51 all the time, and everything's on 51 in there.
You know where Max
Ridgeland.
Grocery or the Ridgeland Police Department
I know
and
where
Freedom
Max,
Ridge Park?
Yeah, yes, right in there.
The library. So you just go right past the police department and over the railroad track, and we're on Commerce Park Drive.
Oh, no, exactly what that is, because Gail Pittman had a place back there, didn't she?
Yes.
And if you go on a block further, a block west of there, there's a car repair, paint place. They
PW10.
I don't know what the name of it is, but European Motors or something like that. They do a lot of good body work on cars.
Yeah. There's a lot of businesses, and it's a one big circle.
Yeah,
so come visit
good.
us anytime.
Well, what else you got for us?
Yeah. So just these hearts that are made, you can do a lot with the box. I mean, this is all it's cheap recycling. So any kind of boxes, we sell them in our office too. So you don't have to be moving to make these. Come by our office.
Let's say you got a box that's like this size, maybe, I don't know, a foot square or something like that. What can you do with that? Probably something pretty creative.
Oh, you could do a maze. We do Touch a Truck with Junior League of Jackson each year, and I have made a box maze. So that was a lot of fun. So you put boxes together.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So just open up the top and the bottom, and little kids would love that. If you get 4 small boxes, we'll have to come back, and I can make a maze that we can go through.
Yes, that would be fun. And couldn't you use something like that for a cat? For cats, like they have something to climb on?
I think so. I feel like cats would, play with one little box or one big, large box.
Cats play with everything.
That's true.
Yeah, give them some of these little pom-poms, and they'll be happy for an hour, right?
Yes. Yeah. If you have a cat, you can take this home.
I don't, but that's okay. I have dogs, but
Her dog is amazing. Apart. Her little dog, Heidi, is amazing.
My little Jack Russell, yes. She is, thank you for saying that. She's the third Heidi in my life, and her name is Heidi 3, but I'm just call her Heidi. She was diagnosed in like November with kidney disease, and there's no cure for it in dogs, and they can't do transplants or anything. And she was declining fast, and she's only 12, which is not old for a Jack. And the vet they were not encouraging, and so we were thinking that if she makes it to Christmas, I prayed to the Lord, please, Christmas. Well, she made it to Christmas, and she's thriving.
She's still
But,
kicking.
she could go any day, but she's eating food, which is good. And I do give her a 3 times a week. I stick a needle like this big, an inch long, into the rough area and inject. It's called lactated ringers, and it's something that flushes out potassium. Potassium is very bad for kidney. It's bad for humans too. You have to flush that out. And she eats the Hills food, which she didn't like. And I put broth on it. And then I discovered, let's see if we'll try. I tried the meat and the kibble. Well, let's see if she'll like the vegetable stew, and she does. It's like little carrots and rice and stuff like that.
Good marketing.
Yes.
Yeah. It
give
looks
them a
pretty.
shout out.
But she can't gain weight because this food does not have any weight gainers, because that's the kind of stuff that puts stress on the kidneys. So, but she takes at least a mile walk or more a day. I mean, she's very adamant about got to go for a walk, She's very much so.
I need to, have her kind of energy.
I do, and I have a high bed, and I didn't think she could still get up. She can get up. I'll find her in there like, how did you get there?
She's thriving.
She is, and that's a wonderful thing. And, like I said, I don't know how long I have with her, but so far so good. Much more than I thought.
If this will make her happy, you can take that. Valentine's happy home.
Yes, and she can't have any chocolate. I can't give her dogs do not have chocolate anyway.
Yeah. Don't give her any of the candy.
She can't have any sweet stuff. I keep telling her, I used to give her little bits of my food, but it has salt in it. My food has salt, and she can't have that.
Not right now.
So I just give her like some of her own food as a treat. Oh, cool. But anyway, she's amazing. She's herself again. She's like naughty things. Like if I leave a napkin lying on a little table or something, if I've had some cookies or something there, she can get up there and tear that napkin apart on the floor. It doesn't distribute it. It's just all right there.
Hawk does that. He loves
in one spot.
One spot.
Just one
like a little nest he's created for me to clean up for him.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
So
his Hawk is a German Shorthair, and he's a hoot. That dog.
He's still growing too.
He's a year and a half old.
Yeah, right at
Oh yeah, he's a baby.
Yeah, he's just a baby.
Golly. Well, we our
legs.
we had in Germany and trained in German, by the way. She was the first Heidi, but her name was Dagmar von der Volkerstadt. Ach Gottlieb. And my parents said, well, we're not going to call our dog Dagmar.
Was there a vowel in there?
Yeah, Dagmar von der Volkerstadt, yeah. Yes, so she was Heidi. And she, by the way, German short hair, not as big as Hawk. Hawk's a big boy. She was not that big. But so we had her for a few months, and then my dad took her to be trained in the German hunt and all this stuff. And they called after about a week, and they said, you got to come and get your dog. She will not do anything. And my dad's like, what? And the guy goes, she will not do a thing. She just wants to sit there, and that's about it.
Like
and so she's not going to work. This is not going to work. You have to come and, take her away or visit her, do something. Come up here. So I remember going. I don't remember being there with my dad, but the dog she's missed us. She had gotten, so attached to us. And I guess we spent, an hour or two with her, and then she was okay. And she took her training very well. And everything she trained was in German.
In German.
And one of the things
crazy.
was Germans don't want their bird dogs, their prey, their prize to be stolen by a cat. So you teach those dogs to kill cats. And you just say, Katze, Heidi, and I never saw her do it. But anyway, so Valentine's, it's time for us to go already. All right, here you are. 2 Men in a Truck has got these ideas for you. And so, bring some boxes
our Facebook
sometime.
page. Yeah, I'll bring some boxes. We can make a maze. But yeah, if you need last minute Valentine's crafts to do with your kids tonight, tomorrow, visit our Facebook page today, and I'll have a link.
Thanks a lot. Shelby Taylor with 2 Men in a Truck. All right, everybody, happy Valentine's Day. See you next time.